And welcome to Recovery Report Live. I'm Dan Odess, joined by our very own Rob Bowlby in the Texas office. We are coming to you live today with an incredible broadcast. We're talking about some really important issues, and we have an awesome guest that will be joining us in a little bit. But before we get there, we want to talk about some important, I think, statistics, I would call it, statistics that have been recently published about insurance claim satisfaction amongst consumers. Now, this is an article that we recently received through an email blast from one of the great media outsources that sends all this industry information out. And Accenture recently published an article titled, and obviously this information will be available to you in links. Make sure that you check out our website, our social media channels. If you haven't hit the subscribe button and liking us and follow us, it's right there. So go ahead and do that. Make sure that you are following us, and you'll have a link to this article. It says, why AI in insurance claims and underwriting. Why AI? And Rob, one of the issues that we picked on in this article is the dissatisfaction amongst consumers regarding the length of time it takes to actually get a claim paid. And remarkably, it was interesting to see that one of the statistics in the infancy of the claim, within about 4 days, within the first 4 days of the claim, you're seeing a statistic of nearly 20% of consumers are dissatisfied with the claims process. So, like in our experience, and when consumers ask us how long this process is going to take, we usually talk about a process that's about 4 to 8 months long.
Right.
So to see the publication focusing in, and it's kind of unrealistic expectation by some consumers, but it is the reality that we live in, is this dissatisfaction. Almost 20%. It's definitely shy of that. Are dissatisfied just within a few days of filing a claim.
Yeah. This is an interesting article, and as you said at the beginning of the cast, it just kind of came to us recently, and I would love to see this entire study because there's so many issues this raises. It's interesting that people are dissatisfied at that speed because what we see often is, even when the insurance company works fast, sometimes that first offer is just a terrible lowball offer.
Right.
And so then if somebody like GlobalPro gets involved and we don't accept it, then all of a sudden the process dramatically slows down. And that's when you get into that 4 to 8 month process. So we'll even see insurers throw out an offer pretty quickly. It's just not nearly enough of an offer to restore the property to the pre-loss condition.
And what I find, even if you go back to a report done after the 2005 storm season in South Florida, Hurricane Wilma, those were the days. And there was a report done. It's OPPAGA 10-06. Again, we'll make sure that these links are obviously included in there. And it talked about, there was this overwhelming desire by insurance companies to clamp down on public adjusting. And it was this wild industry that they needed to put, basically golden handcuffs on and tame the public adjusters because yet again, the public adjusting industry was being used as a building block to justify their anti-consumer legislation that they wanted to pass, which largely did get passed. And then many of those laws got ruled unconstitutional in the courts process. So, but what I want to pick on is that one of the part of the study, obviously written by sympathizers for insurance companies, it was lobbied for and by insurance companies to do this investigation. The report took some time to get published. It was post the actual legislation session when we actually got our hands on it. However, it was kind of sort of cited to in that legislative session. And one of the things they pointed to is that, public adjusters are while they'll get you more money, it's going to take you longer. Right. And I'm like, well, that's interesting because if I give you 20 cents of what I actually owe you today and you accept it and move on, but don't know you're owed that other 80 cents, then, well, yeah, I mean, because as a public adjuster, a licensed public adjuster advocating for a consumer, making sure that they're getting 100% of the benefit owed to them, it may take a bit longer. So in here you have consumers going, man, I want to get paid today. I want to get paid right now. I had a loss, pay me now. And it makes sense. I mean, if you think about it. But the reality of, though, I will say, particularly when it comes to consumers in the commercial policy industry, right? Consumers that are buying commercial policies. Now, I think this from what I read and can garnish from the actual report, is really focused on homeowners. And on the commercial policy side of things, it's incredible how long it takes insurance companies to pay claims where you don't have a insurance expert representing your interest from the onset of a loss. Just a real good claim story, if you will. Just recently, we were representing a multifamily property owner operator, and they gave us a shot. They had 7, or 8, or however many fire claims the prior year. They're like, hey, we want to give it a shot with you. We're really not liking the performance of our insurance companies. Want to see what you guys can do. And we were able to just give them a presentation to show them that while they were typically getting paid within about 300 days on average prior to our involvement, we were settling these claims for literally a third or less of the time. And so we need to bifurcate these issues. I think a lot of times we take these statistics and we kind of broad stroke them as saying, all policyholders or all consumers. Yep. That's not what this is about. I truly believe this was typically focused on, and most of the issues we see in the reporting on these statistics is mostly homeowners and not commercial property owners and operators that are buying commercial policies. So taking a step back from that, it's still remarkable. I find it remarkable to see dissatisfaction so early on in such a huge number. I mean, if and we have the report right here in front of us. But if you actually look at these numbers, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Rob, look at that number at 6 months.
Yeah, 39%.
39%, almost 40%. Okay, almost 40% of consumers are dissatisfied at 6 months. Now, if you add, here's an interesting fact for you, right? In most jurisdiction, the insurance companies have, let's say, roughly about 90 days to give you a coverage determination. And then in your policy, if you look at it, in your homeowner's policy, go take a look for a provision that says lost payment. It's going to tell you in that provision how much longer they have thereafter to actually make a payment, and the conditions to getting that payment most often is like a sworn statement of proof of loss. And if you're a consumer tuning in right now and you've never gone through a claims process, you're probably looking at the screen going, what is he even talking about, right? So there's actually requirements in your contract. Go look in there in your policy, and it'll actually tell you what your obligations are to even trigger the payment. And most often it's going to say another 20, 30 days. That's how we get to the 4 to 8 month range. And here we have, it's actually saying, Rob, right there, 3 to 6 months, same number, 39%, right? So at 3 months and on or greater, you're looking at let's just call it a rough number, 40%. About 40% of consumers are dissatisfied, even though in some states, the insurance companies have lobbied for a period of time that gives them, at minimum, around 4 months to make a payment. But you have almost 40% of your consumers dissatisfied at that period of time. And interestingly, we talked about this actually in a prior broadcast, Rob. You had joined me, where recently there was lobbying efforts to extend the period of time for an insurance company to actually respond to a claim. Even though, and what this article is written about was artificial intelligence, and really why they're writing these articles is that while InsurTech was the darling of your investors, your VC money over the last several years, there's slow adoption by insurance companies. And actually the opposite is happening, where they're lobbying while all this money from VCs is flowing in to this massive $1 trillion industry to expedite the process. The insurance companies are lobbying for extended periods of time and not adopting the actual technology. And here you have huge statistics. In 48 hours, in less than 48 hours, this report is saying that 17% of consumers are dissatisfied.
Right. Well, and you got, if you're right that this is mainly homeowner data, a couple things. One, as you get to that 3 to 6 month and beyond, chances are the insurance company has either denied the claim or significantly lowballed the offer, and they're having to fight for it. And if you think about, if you're right, and these are homeowner claims, you think what they're going through. They can't use a part or potentially all of their house. They're living somewhere else, perhaps with their spouse, with a bunch of kids. It's a very disruptive process for a family. And then on top of all that, to your point, they have to go find their policy, read the contract, figure out all of their duties under the contract just to get, hopefully, paid something.
And it begs the question, how long is this going to take is got to be the number one question we are asked when hired to represent the interests of a policyholder. And in looking at these statistics, the growing dissatisfaction amongst consumers is just shocking. Not surprising, but shocking in the same. We're not surprised. In fact, in other broadcasts, we talked about another report published by Value Penguin that actually showed you the reasons for the dissatisfaction. This one focuses on a particular issue. And this chart is actually, it shows you the percentage of policyholders not fully satisfied by speed of settlements, right? That's what these numbers we're talking about here are about. This Value Penguin report of 2018 roughly was actually broke down the other reasons why there's growing dissatisfaction amongst consumers, and was reporting about 64% of consumers that had claims that they actually surveyed were dissatisfied with their claims handling by their insurance company. So that was a much broader statistic, just in general, how many are dissatisfied, about 64%. And then they broke down the reasons for it. And of those top 10 reasons, most of them had to do with the amount of the claim. This actual research focuses in on the length of time it's taking to settle these claims. And actually, again, shocking but not surprising for many of the reasons we talk about here today and all these broadcasts. And what's the solution? Well, I believe the author of this article is making obviously a play for AI. Right. They're making an argument, not play, but an argument that AI is the answer to helping do this. I can't disagree in part. Particularly because of the massive investment that GlobalPro has made into technology. We have proprietary technology that we're developing, both for internal use, for tracking and managing claims, as well as consumer-based software to help consumers, and not only just consumers themselves, but those that are servicing consumers, such as your agents and brokers and your adjusters, understand a little bit about how they're getting paid and why they're getting paid whatever they're getting paid. But and so we're making that investment. We see the advantages. We understand it. So again, shocking but not surprising. We get it. And I think the point, Rob, you're making is that looking at the more broader actual report by Value Penguin, more of the justification for dissatisfaction was on the amount being paid. Right. And I think some of what you should take from this is that consumers are not happy with the speed at which the process is happening. Also, you have to understand is the reason why you bought insurance is to indemnify you, make you whole. So just because you're getting paid today or like within 48 hours, I would actually kind of struggle with the idea that in any way possible that they ever actually properly assessed your damages and paid you. So if you're getting paid within the first 4 months, or let's say within the first 48 hours, I think you need to look really closely at what they paid you. And they might be making, and I would venture to say that they almost certainly are not paying you what you're owed.
There's a couple things I got to jump in on here. So one, I think there is a role for AI, and to your point, I think it's in smaller claims. Yeah. And I liken it to, I come from a banking background. I liken it to in small business lending, you can get a loan in 24, 48 hours, but your interest rate is going to be 10, 12, maybe 20%. And on $5,000 or $10,000, that's probably okay. Yeah. You don't want to do that on $1 million or even probably a $200,000 loan. You'd rather go to a bank and go through an underwriting process and get a loan closer to a market interest rate. And so I think there will be a role for AI in small claims. You settle them fast. Yes, you're going to get underpaid, but it's okay because it's a small amount and it's not worth the hassle of fighting the insurance company. Where there's probably also a role for AI, you talk about dissatisfaction in 48 hours. I'm thinking of a live case we have right now where we filed with the insurance company on Friday, sent letter of representation, asked for a demand for additional living expenses, and now we're Thursday. We're like 6 days later, zero communication.
Yeah,
Nothing even from the insurance company, not acknowledgement of our letter of representation, not confirmation or denial of our request. And I've daily check in with the policyholder, no communication from the policyholder. So even if they could just use AI to improve the communication process, that's probably the first step with some of these insurance companies.
I would actually say that there's quite a few claims that come to us as insurance coverage experts that the reason why we are being contacted by that policyholder or claimant is because it's been days, if not weeks. And in an instant that I just kind of build on another example, we literally just signed up a gentleman who owns a shopping center, heavily damaged, and gave notice, and it's been 2 months. 2 months, and there's been no adjuster to the property. He's spoken with the representative of the insurance company. They've sent no letters, anything acknowledging his claim. Won't even give him a claim number. They just say they have a file number, but don't have a claim number from the insurance company. That's a little bit of a sidebar, more complicated issue between third-party administrators, insurance companies, and gets in a bunch of whole technical jargon. Not for this broadcast. But the let's just say it this way: the representatives hired by the insurance companies to manage the claims for them can't get the insurance company to acknowledge the claim and give them the claim number. And he just is so fed up with it. He's like, come on, I need help. And obviously we wish that more people would call us first, as you can see right there above my head, and let us know about these issues before even reporting a claim. Because a lot of the issues that I see early on and what I think leads to a lot of dissatisfaction is that most people don't even have a copy of their policy, don't know how to report a claim, don't know what to say, what not to say, how to say it. They make assumptions about their damages and their claims. They give maybe sometimes too much information. And I say that because sometimes it's just built-in assumptions about the scope of the damage, the cause of the issue, things like that, which unfortunately does lead to delays and unnecessary additional inspections and document requests and all this other post-loss obligation stuff that while an insurance company can say, oh, he's just a consumer homeowner, he doesn't know what he's talking about, thank you, sir, whatever else, we're going to do right by you, we're going to fix the situation. We just unfortunately see a lot of insurance companies or representatives just take advantage of that situation and then use everything against you that they can, again, leading to the more delay. So I find it interesting that consumers it's almost 20% of consumers want to be paid within 48 hours, and they're dissatisfied when they're not. I would actually say be patient. I don't know, based on today's processes where you have insurance companies not adopting AI, which they should be on small claims, 100%. Yep. And obviously to build on an earlier comment about our investment, our biggest investment is actually on the consumer side of it for smaller claims, as opposed to the internal processes systems that we have, which we've developed, that are geared towards handling much more complex commercial type losses. It's just too much information, like information overload to consumers. And I would say be patient. If you're having a claim, you're a homeowner, you have to exercise patience, but you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times you're not going to have your policy. You're not going to have information. Even if you have your policy, it's so complex. These policy forms are all risk or special form, and they keep changing the name of it and explaining it some other way. But it essentially tells you what you're not going to get paid for, but doesn't tell you what you're going to get paid for most homeowners. So it's a daunting task by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, to help yourself in the claims process. If you don't have someone representing your interest or assisting you through the claims process, you're at such a disadvantage. This isn't just a sales pitch because we're doing this and having this call today. It's unbelievable how disadvantaged you are as a consumer in today's market when it comes to insurance. It's a hard market. You're dealing with uncertainty in the financial market. Now you're going to take a risk on your claim, your policy that you're paying, tons of money for relative to the value of your property. Year after year, you're required to do it by your lien holder, your mortgage holder. and then you're not adhering to your obligations under the contract. And even if you think you're doing the right thing, it's most likely not what you're required to do in the policy.
Right.
And our next guest knows this as well as anyone else, how these things need to happen, what they should be doing about this process. They have for years advocated on behalf of policyholders. I'm honored to have them join us here today to talk about these important issues. I'll add our guest here. We're very happy. Let me. Apologize, guys. We're having a little bit of a technical issue, and I'm going to switch our cameras around because of the size of the screen. There we go. We got you, David. Sorry about that. I apologize. That's Bill. Yes, David is no longer with us here. That's what the issue with the cameras are, but whatever. We got you, Bill. We're super happy to have you with us. I love the framed picture behind you, very much so. In fact, the first gift that Rob ever gave me actually said that on it. So it's very fitting to have you here. Here's David joining us now. So let me add David here to the call here, and we'll introduce you guys. There you are, David. Boom.
Morning.
We got you all. There we are.
There we go.
How are you, gentlemen?
You gotta love it.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me okay? I just want to make sure you can hear me okay.
Perfect. Yeah, man.
We can hear you. David, you good?
I'm good.
Excellent.
All right. Perfect, guys. Well, welcome, the Voss Law Firm. Thank you guys for joining us. I think it's a great segment to have you on. It was awesome to get this report this morning because it certainly was a great segue into our conversation about all the great things that you do for the folks here in Texas, and want to get into that a bit. Obviously, Bill, I want to start off with you. Tell us about the Voss Law Firm and types of clients and things that you guys have done over the years.
Yeah, I'd love to. First of all, look, thank you very, very much for having us. We really appreciate it. We think what you guys are doing is absolutely not only amazing, but really, really very much needed, right? We have always been, we now doing this 20 years, representing 4,000 or 5,000 policyholders. We like to say we were kind of doing this before doing this was cool. But
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Look, we've always been proponents of education, right? We think that, the more a policyholder is educated, they make smarter decisions, hire better experts, engage with better folks. And clearly what you guys are doing in these efforts and your efforts, you may not hear it every day, but I just, from the trenches here, I know that consumers and policyholders appreciate it. I know it's valuable, and it helps, this side, what I call this side of the bar, because, look, we are advocates at the end of the day for our policyholders, right, as you are as well. And, I started this business because I thought that, and still do think that folks, sort of sandlot up against the big bully in school. I mean, you're fighting against, think about it. I mean, you're fighting against, billion and $1 trillion industry, $1 billion companies, some of the best defense lawyers on the planet, fighting against, paying what they should be paying, and certainly relevant to today's conversation, and certainly, paying on time as they should, right? And without folks like you, without folks like us, it's just very, very, very steep hill to climb. I mean, it's probably tougher than climbing Everest, to be honest with you, without the right advocate on your side. So anyway, just wanted to start by saying thank you very much for what you do, for doing this podcast and inviting us to be a part of it.
No, it's awesome. It's great to have you guys on it. It's let's just say it's Everest and climbing it in the middle of a snowstorm, because you never know what's coming at you because you can't see in front of you. You're constantly throwing new things at consumers and particularly their advocates, fighting on multiple fronts, whether it's through legislation changes, policy changes. They sneak in these rules and regulation changes. Wherever they can get it, they try to limit your access as a consumer to the courts, to advocates, to a fair process. I mean, that's basically, let's just call it what it is. And that's why I just find this article is remarkable. You're seeing a lot more articles written like this to build a basis and an argument as to why insurance companies should be adopting AI and to help the process, but they're just not. Why? Because it doesn't advantage them. The claims are their losses. Your premiums are their profit. So they don't see a reason to expedite the process when they can get you to take less. So there's just no incentive there. If they can show them that they can make more money by spending more money on that stuff, then I think that the conversation will change. But that doesn't mean it's probably for anyone's good. We saw there's an issue with probably one of the first companies to the market that was selling policies entirely through the internet. Everything was automated. It started in the New York market, and then they were using AI video recognition to pay or deny claims. And obviously consumer protections groups came out and said, oh my God, they're wrongfully denying claims based on race. And if you smile the wrong way, suddenly your claim gets denied. Literally, facial recognition software was being used to determine whether or not your claim is going to get paid. Nothing to do with your claim, the actual facts in it. So these are the things that are actually happening today, right now, that we all need to be aware of. So Bill, sticking with you. When did you start Voss Law Firm? You have an amazing and fascinating family story. I fell into this rabbit hole of reading about it. I hope you touch on it a little bit. I think if anything else, it's just entertaining. So tell us about the family and tell us about you, man. You've moved all over the world, just like me too. By the way, I lived in China. With my family lived there. We lived in London, and obviously United States, several different places. So tell us about your family story. Tell us about why Voss Law Firm.
Yeah, look, sure. Ninth generation Texan, so I bleed Texas. I'm right exactly where I want to be, but young in the younger years, grew up overseas. My dad was oil field. My mom's a nurse. We grew up in Saudi Arabia. Got to travel the world at a very young age, and get to experience almost every culture that's out there, right? Interact and experience with every culture out there. And so, I think incredibly valuable looking back. It's allowed us as a firm to really be able, I think, to communicate with all walks of life, every type of client that you could imagine when it comes to being a policyholder, representing, folks that, homes are the largest investment of their life and will be their largest investment of their life, all the way up to portfolio owners that own billions of dollars in property. And so, we communicate with each and every one of them, I think, very effectively because of the experience of kind of living through, the culture differences and, sort of the education systems abroad. But yeah, back to Texas to play some football, and from football to law school, and law school to the Voss Law Firm. So hung the shingle from day one. Never really wanted to be part of big firm. It wasn't really my culture. My culture is I want to represent people, and I want to represent those people that really need the representation. Those folks that are getting taken advantage of by these billion-dollar conglomerates. I mentioned, the best and biggest lawyers in the world. They can afford any of them. It's not only to fight claims, by the way. You touched on this. It's also to lobby against policyholder interest. And we're very blessed in this country to have a system that, we can effectively fight against the biggest conglomerate companies on the planet through our judicial system. And I think that is really something that makes us very special and sets us apart from other parts of the world. And so that's what we do. I've spent my career now 20 years representing thousands and thousands of policyholders, billions of dollars recovered. You touched on some of this earlier, and I can hold my hand up and tell you it's the truth. Look, if policyholders are getting paid early in the process, we gather this data obviously and track it. They're getting paid about 10 to 20% of what the real value of their claim is. It's almost universally paid late, and almost never paid in full unless they get an advocate like you and your firm or me and my firm involved. That's what I call an unfortunate truth. But it keeps us very, very busy because they are very, very, very large ships out in the middle of the sea that are hard to turn, right? They're slow to change, slow to adoption. I think there's a great debate about AI, by the way, and how they could use it potentially to help policyholders. But you touched on this. I mean, they're not in the business to help policyholders. No. I mean, they're in the business to make money. And it's not only about making money, it's about driving profits. They're a business. And so policyholders, I don't care how small or large, they're just a number to them. And their mission is to pay as little and late as possible.
So Bill, you mentioned 20 years. Over that time, what are you seeing as the trends, particularly lately, any trends that are actually helping policyholders in Texas?
Well, helping, I think getting an advocate as early as possible is critical. Again, I think the earlier you get a professional involved, the better you're going to be as a policyholder. So let me answer kind of the opposite question too. Like, what trends are we seeing that sort of aren't positive, right? I mean, we are paying special attention to this sort of what we call COVID era, inflationary markets that are impacting carriers, and just the general economy in general. And so, look, all of that combined, does that mean that claims are now getting paid even later and even lower? Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate truth. It is, right? It's claims are getting, what we are seeing is claims are almost having to kind of get put into litigation to kind of, we're being told this by folks that, they are in the position where they're not really taking it seriously, for lack of better words, unless there's a team of advocates on their side. So if it's just a matter of, a policyholder filing a claim and hoping things go well, the hoping things go well, that's from the insurance company's perspective. They hope they don't hire an advocate, right? And especially in today's market, because they know, and they have these numbers too, that they're going to be off the hook for 10 to 20% at most, in saving their company, up to 80+% of the value of the claim. In addition to these, I think there's probably percentage-wise, more denials these days than there were in the past. We're kind of collecting and aggregating that data as we speak. And by the way, what a great potential use for AI. I think you plug in an AI machine into that kind of data, and will be very interesting to see what comes out the other side. But yeah, longer, lower, and more improper denials. It's all happening, and it's getting worse.
I think it's I want to jump in on that because it's funny you say that, more denials. We just saw in the Florida legislature, they had that special session that they called, and one of the questions by a pro-consumer senator was actually, let me say who he asked. He asked the anti-consumer senator, who also is an insurance agent, a direct question as to where are the data and statistics that you promised us last session that were due this session, which forms the basis of the proposed legislation today. And their question, well, I think we have a misunderstanding as to when that data was due. But it's like, well, wait, you're peddling this idea that there is an issue with the lawsuits being filed. The 116,000 lawsuits have been filed. But where's the data on those lawsuits? Is it that there's just more lawsuits, or is it that they're paying more money? Because if they're paying more money, well, don't you want to know what they're paying for? Is that money going to the consumer or the lawyers, et cetera, whatever else? And I can tell you, amongst the lawyers at the top of the list of those that have the largest volume, they're actually seeing that it's just smaller claims. There's just more volume of business, but this claim size really hasn't changed. So it's taking, and I think the point you're alluding to is that for some of these insurance companies, they don't take you serious until you sue them sometimes. And you're really left at this disadvantage that it's like, wait, now I have to give up a portion of my claim in order to be able to get paid by my insurance company for them to do what they're supposed to do. And then they're using that volume of lawsuits and a lot of wrongfully denied claims as the reasons why they need to clamp down on the industry and strip all the lawyer fees out of it. So then they're just shifting the burden back on the consumer to pay for these lawyers to get the claim paid that otherwise should have been paid. It makes no sense. It's the circle of life as it is with insurance. And but it is a trend. It is what's happening. It's quite frankly, it's what keeps a lot of law firms in business, which is the flip side of it. And a lot of what came out of that legislative session, the irony is that those that advocated for those changes admitted that all of the changes they're making are not going to make insurance any more affordable, even though that was the whole justification for making those changes and using all that incorrect information in the first place. So essentially all they've accomplished doing is stripping the consumer of more access to advocates. Didn't save them $1. In fact, are going to cost them even more money. And really nothing ever got resolved. We still don't have the statistics on the information they promised in the prior legislation session. And on and on and on. And I know I'm picking on a Florida issue and I'm sitting here in Texas, but I think it's relevant. I think that there's a lot of changes that go on in both states between Texas and Florida that become the bellwether in the decision by amongst other states throughout. I say California is probably the only other one where you see the changes go and happen, and then thereafter everyone kind of follows suit. So that's why I do pick on that issue. So since it just happened recently, this is recent news, I would expect a lot of that to kind of carry over and some people to start looking at what they did there and how they can do that here, and vice versa. Because I can tell you, I do know that there's been some changes over the years that happened in Texas. The next thing I know, I'm reading a bill going, wow, that looks just like the issue I just dealt with over in Texas. We've been operating here for over 10 years in the Texas air market. Rob joining the team, obviously, to kick up the actual fully staffed office here for us and really take the bull by the horns. But certainly a great issue you've picked on. It's good to hear it from a lawyer because I know you're seeing it too, and it's great that have you guys on. I know, Rob, you were going to ask about some of the notable claims practices.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about it because so we recently had a fire claim, where the insurance company engaged a questionably qualified engineer to give a very brief report that supported their position on their payment, and obviously we went out and got a qualified engineer that gave a pretty strong rebuttal to that report. And when you read that rebuttal, I mean, I suspected the report was pretty flawed, but when you read the rebuttal, which they did line by line, you really understand what a flawed report it was. And it just made me think, if you didn't have an advocate, you probably would have accepted that report. It's the insurance company saying, hey, I'm hiring this company and they back up my opinion, so this is the amount of money you're going to get. So David or Bill, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. What are some of these other practices you've seen that are kind of hurting policyholders, or what should they be looking out for in the early stages of a claim?
I wish it was a beautiful question, and I wish I had this in front of me, but it's on the website. I'll find it. Maybe you can share it with your
for sure.
audience. There are basically like these 7 kind of basic, fundamental, almost every time reasons that boiler point, if you will, but reasons carriers deny claims. Deny, delay, underpay claims. And that's one of them, right? I mean, so they base their opinion on some flawed, BS, pardon my French, engineer report that gets not, when you get them in a deposition under oath, you find out that they rarely say 100%, okay? But they'll say like 99% of my work and my revenue and the way I feed my family comes from the insurance company, right? It's amazing what you get in depositions under oath. So yeah, listen, I think that it is a game. It is a game to the carrier, right? And so they have a playbook in the very simplest terms They have a playbook, they play by that playbook, and they know if they play by that playbook, 80+% of the people are going to take their word for whatever they get served, and they're going to, tuck their tail and walk away and say, man, that wasn't the best experience, right? But I'm going to go back to where I started. What you're doing today and what you've been doing with this education process that you're doing, I'm going to say that is one of the key reasons, activities like this, that there are more claims being filed. It has nothing to do with more lawyers working, none of that. All that's hogwash, political. Everybody knows politics is the dirtiest business in the business. Insurance companies, second place to that.
Yes.
But it's just, look, we're going to play by this playbook. Everybody's going to, 80+% are going to walk away, but it's getting the consumers and the policyholders educated about what's really going on, because look, they know, many of them know, hey, that just doesn't feel right? That just doesn't feel right. David in my office is reading engineer reports almost every day, and he'll come up, he's like, well, man, look at this. It's so egregious. It's so egregious. But again, they know that if they put that in front of a policyholder's face, what's going to happen, right? And so they're going to deny it or delay it, or 80% are going to walk away. And so, look, I think getting policyholders involved again with an advocate early in the process, very, very smart to do. I mean, you guys know this. I'm sure you've said it 100 times on your show. The carriers have all those experts from day one, right? I mean, they have advocates on their side from day one. They've got lawyers on their side from day one. They've got PAs of sorts on, they don't call them PAs as your audience knows, but they've got them. And they've got all these advocates, right, on their side from day one. And there's really zero reason a policyholder shouldn't have some expertise on their side from day one. So they don't experience these sorts of, flawed engineer reports and other things, these other 6 reasons why insurance companies do what they do to the detriment of policyholders.
Let me jump to David for just a second, because David and I have talked about this over breakfast, but I know you guys do a lot of hail claims. And at least one practice we've seen, I don't think I've ever seen a hail claim filed where the insurance company doesn't say, well, that's not from the hailstorm that occurred during your policy period. That's from a hailstorm 2 years ago, which is not covered within this policy period. David, I don't know if you have any comment on that, but I know you guys handle a lot of that kind of stuff.
Hail, yeah, I have something to say on hail claims. But it is absolutely incredible how they deny, delay, and under these particulars. I'm just got a motel in just this morning. Well over $200,000 worth of damage. It's lit up like from one side to the next. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dots by their own experts. And somehow they can walk away and say, no, we're not going to pay this. It's just bruising. It's minor. No granule loss. You post our pictures and there's significant granule loss. Maybe not on every single one of those dots, but definitely significant loss. What are they going to do? Wait until the building starts leaking and then they want significant damages that they have to pay? So this will be paid pretty easily, I believe. I have to, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump back on this report that you guys have been talking about. And you guys get to talk. I know my camera's not the best right now. I'm a really animated speaker, so it's frustrating for me to not do that, but I know it's going to be.
It's all right.
So I'm going to lock it down.
How about this, Bill? Bill and David, I promise you, we'll bring you back on. We'll make sure that we'll actually bring you into the studio maybe and have you do it from there, so you can get that animation. I love a little. I want to see the emotion, so I get it. Because I get all emotional about it. So they're like, "Oh, you don't shut up." I'm like, "There's so much to talk about." So it's just, and people don't know. They don't know.
Can I just without my hands, real quick, talk about the byproduct of all of this delay? Like, look at your report, the report that you shot off to me. 39% of people are frustrated within 3 months. Okay. And if this thing continues to work, this is what I see every day. You guys get to speak all this esoteric, insurance, lingo. I understand some of it, but what I do understand is how many people are frustrated to the point that they just give up on their claim.
Yep.
Because, thinking or acting roofers, public adjusters, they're working this, they're trying to help their client get this thing paid so that they get another job. They're working really hard for them, but they work it sometimes just too long. And this document, this proves that after 60 days, they're just sick of it. Because then if you go to them, you know what, the only way we're going to get this paid is if we engage legal. And they're like, okay, well, what does that look like? What does that mean? No, we file a lawsuit tomorrow? No, that means, unfortunately, we start back at the very beginning and we make a demand, and then we have to wait, and then we'll file a lawsuit. And they just go, I'm exhausted. I'm furious. I'm out. And so there has to be, Bill uses a term frequently, there should be a backstop. There should be a date that we're communicating with our customers, our clients, and saying, look, if we can't get this paid in this period of time, are you willing to go legal? That's the way that this the only way that we're going to be able to get some of these paid. And you guys are amazing. You guys kill it. I'm talking about roofers, public adjusters, but sometimes it just goes too long. And this report just kind of shows that the frustration starts at day 2, and then it just ramps up from there till sometimes we're just all losing out. And is this a selfish ask of mine? Without doubt. I would like things to go legal sooner than later, all of the time. But everybody has their business model. I'm not going to try and talk somebody off of that. I appreciate every single one of you. I'm sure a lot of the people that subscribe to your podcast, they know at least my voice, if not my face, because I do 1 million cold calls a week. So I would just say, talk to customers, talk to clients before they get so frustrated that they just kick the whole baby out with the bathwater.
No, it's all.
I enjoy.
Yeah, we're constantly telling people. I mean, at least, if we feel as if the process isn't going to come to some sort of finality, at least talk with counsel, right? Just what is that going to cost? What's it going to take? What is it like? What's that process like? Just a couple minutes, just at least so that if and when we have to do that, you're not caught off guard by that, and you're not starting the process then, because all of that delay in your decision-making process is in favor of the insurance company, not yourself. So avoid the delay. And if the recommendation is being made that you need to speak with counsel, don't hesitate, and don't wait to speak to counsel until you are past the point of no return. If you feel as if you're getting to the point of no return, that's when you should be obviously speaking with counsel about that process, getting to familiarize yourself with it. And we talk to our clients all the time about that when it's necessary. And unfortunately, I think, Bill, you touched on it. The growing need for that involvement of counsel earlier on in the claims process is growing. That's not a good consumer indicator for insurance coverage experts like ourselves, who are not a law firm, but it is the reality of it. It's why we obviously work closely with law firms and share information, is because we want to try to get as much of the documentation and post-loss compliance and all that other stuff out of the way earlier on, so that if it needs to go to legal, we can make the decision earlier on, to avoid that inflection point of you can't go back on and the point of no return. So sometimes when I say the point of no return, we don't want our clients to give up. And I think the point of no return is the giving up. It's I can't deal with this anymore. I'm just going to fix the bill. They go out of pocket. They don't care. They don't even want to pursue it anymore. And so we need to make the decision earlier on. We need to be talking about these things. We need to be not afraid to have that conversation earlier on, because it's a reality of it. I give an analogy to the cancer patient that's in a hospital that needed that drug, and suddenly it's experimental and the insurance company doesn't want to pay for it. We've all heard that story. We've all heard how that plays out, right? We've heard we've heard it play out where the person dies, and we've heard it and the insurance companies get sued, and we've heard it play out where the insurance company gets sued and they finally give them the drug. But we've all heard that story, and just think about it. That's an insurance company making a decision on someone's life. Why do you think it's going to be any better when it's your home? And I hate to say this, but some of the insurance companies we see in the property world are wholly owned or subsidiaries or closely related to these same insurance companies making the death and dying decisions. And we don't do death and dying. We don't do health and life benefits or any workman comp or anything like that. But just I say this to consumers all the time. Just think, those are the same people making a decision as to whether or not they want to pay for your bathroom that's been damaged by a water claim. Okay, it's the same people a lot of times that decided that that person's life wasn't worth 10 grand. Okay, because that's sometimes how much the pill was, or even 100 grand. What is the price you put on someone's life? Even though they probably sold them a life insurance policy through one of the subsidiaries for millions of dollars, they don't want to pay for the $100,000 pill, which I always find is an interesting conundrum in some of those stories, that they had a life insurance policy that was for millions of dollars that now needs to pay out because the health insurer didn't want to pay for the allegedly experimental drug that was $100,000. So, but again, it's insurance. It's just insurance. Their policies, their contracts. You need to know what you don't know. And the only way you're going to know what you don't know is by engaging someone, an expert, by going through this process and continuing doing shows like this and getting you guys on here. I'm really happy, David, that you picked on that article because I wanted to get your take on it. I don't know, Bill, if you might have heard some of it early on. We were talking about it, but one of the statistics was within 48 hours, believe it or not. Assurance was reporting dissatisfaction with the speed of the claims process amongst its the consumers that were surveyed here. 17% in 48 hours.
Yeah, look, a whole lot more if you would take into consideration all those people who took the first check that got put on the table a couple of days after the loss. So the number's probably a lot worse than what the article indicates. But in my opinion, and what I've seen over 20 years. Yep. But I think, look, what we're talking about is sort of systems, consistency, processes, and, this is sort of the same thing AI does, right? It just, the only difference is it makes some decisions for humans. But, what David alluded to was, kind of what we talk with our referral partners about all the time. I mean, we all have businesses to run, and we want to represent as many policyholders as we can and do so successfully. But, these systems that are in place from our referral partner perspective, we think are just so critical and so important to make sure that the policyholder gets what they want ultimately and gets it timely as much as possible. And so, I do call them backstops, right? So I talk to referral partners all the time. I'm like, look, just set a date, from either the date you sign them up or the date of loss, and, convey this to the client up front and say, look, we're going to kick butt. We're going to do everything we're really good at what we do. But the net and sort of the lay of the land is, if we take the ball so far down the field, there might be a time where we need to recommend or suggest you speak with counsel. We put a deadline on that. And it's just so hey, it's 90 days or 120 days or whatever it may be. We get to day 121 and, we're going to, with your permission, introduce you to counsel. At least you can get some legal advice and we'll know more by then, right? And so there is a set plan in place with a backstop that works for the policyholder, that works for our referral partners. And then we know we're not getting the file so late in the process that we spend the first 3 months having to rebuild it, for lack of better words. Because every day that goes by from a lawyer's perspective, and I'm sure it's the same from your perspective, and you mentioned this earlier, you want to get the file as early as you can. And one of the core reasons for that, there's more than one, but one of the core reasons for that is because you want to drive the boat. You want to steer the ship. You want to make sure that we miss the potholes and make as few mistakes as possible. Well, the same goes for us, right? I mean, we want to be engaged and involved as early in the process as possible, because there are mistakes that policyholders make early in the process that can and ultimately will be fatal to the cause, right? And so the earlier the policyholder can get engaged with a professional, the better, all the way around, okay? And by the way, this is true because this is the exact opposite of what the carrier or the carrier's adjuster is suggesting or whatever suggests to the policyholder. So there's your indicator. But yes, educate and encourage policyholders to get a professional involved as early as possible. And that public adjuster that they get engaged hopefully has a plan or a process implemented that they are consistent with, that would encourage bringing on legal if and only if needed and as early as possible, so the lawyer can do the best job the lawyer can do for the public adjuster and for the policyholder ultimately.
All right, guys, it's been awesome. I mean, I've definitely enjoyed the conversation. It's great to have you guys on to talk about these things that are going on, obviously, particularly in Texas. But, Texas is really I don't think the market is any real different than what we're seeing elsewhere. There's just a lot of consumer reports coming out of California about recent things regarding the wildfires and some of the changes they're making. And they have a great consumer protections where they're constantly in the public eye, demanding compliance by the insurance companies to step up and do the right thing. While the insurance companies are making wild assumptions about what they don't know. So I definitely think that they're more public about it, but that doesn't mean that it's not going on elsewhere in other different markets, particularly in Texas, where we see a lot of hail, we see hurricanes, we see all the major, and we've just recently the fires down in Balk. We're there, we're on the ground. We're seeing and feeling these things. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us. But before we go, I know we're going a little bit long here. We usually do this, by the way, guys, 30 minutes. We're at 56 minutes and rolling. So, but it's been a good conversation. And I honestly, getting this report this morning completely changed my focus and intro here. I was going in a completely different direction. I'm like, I'm going to spin up some positivity. I'm going to do everything else. I read this report. I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't not talk about it. It's too relevant. It's too important. And it's definitely an issue that unfortunately, a lot of consumers are not paying close enough attention to. While they're paying more money from it, in fact, rather than running at it, they're running away from it. And now they're more scared than ever to use their insurance to pay for anything because they're afraid that it's going to come back to them and cost them even more money. So, but the reality of it is that, and as we talked about on prior broadcasts, that's not how it works. But if there's someone listening in to this broadcast, how are they getting a hold of you all? And where should they go? Is there a website, social media? What should they check to find out the latest of what's going on with the Voss Law Firm?
The easiest way is just VossLawFirm.com. And all our social links are there. Email is there. Phone number's there. VossLawFirm.com. And we've got about 2,000 pieces of educational material on the site, a couple hundred videos. And so there's a wealth of information for any consumer or policyholder that might be listening.
And a library of books I saw.
And some books.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have read some of them, and I guess I didn't pay close enough attention. I was like, oh wait, that's right there on their website. So it's awesome, guys. I definitely encourage our audience to check out the website. A lot of information there, tons of videos. You guys are definitely doing a great job, and part of the solution here. We're doing our part as well too. So it's great to see some advocates out there putting out content, taking the time. It's a huge time investment, as you all know, plus money. So it's free advice. It's free information. It's only on you, the consumer, to educate yourself at that point, to eat and consume this information. So get on their website, check it out, and I'm certain that they will give you some free advice, walk you through the process, and let you know what's going on there. Again, David, Bill, thanks so much for joining Rob and I here. It's been awesome, and we'll be in touch with you guys soon.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks
very, very much.
All right. Well, that was an awesome segment. Again, as I noted just a few minutes ago, not the direction I thought I was going to go today. I woke up this morning. I was feeling positive about life. Our office in Texas is kicking ass for consumers. We had some amazing week here in Texas. So far, still got a day to go. Delivered some amazing news to a client just yesterday. Met some new folks that we're planning to do some business with. It's been such a positive week to get that report. Some may say, "Oh, well, you should be excited about that." Well, I'm not. We're already aware of the issues, obviously, Rob. Right? We see this stuff.
See it.
Yeah, we see it all the time. So to see a report with such staggering statistics about dissatisfaction amongst the consumers, to reinforce the issues that we have talked about at such great length here on this show, in our blogs, on our website, on social media, is just remarkable. So it just reaffirms everything we're saying here. But if you haven't liked us, follow us on all our social media and hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. then what are you waiting for? Check us out. Make sure that you are there. Make sure you're in tune to it. Subscribe to our newsletter. Go onto our website, globalpro.com. A quick pop-up form will come up there. Put your information in there. It'll subscribe you right to that newsletter where you'll get all the notifications right there in the email box with a newsletter giving you the latest news, the greatest news for you to use, information you can use as a consumer, whether it's insurance related, business strategy, whatever it may be. We want to make sure that you have information you can use. That's what this is all about. And we will see you next week, same place, same time, right here on the Recover Report Live.